So, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, the set is complete. So, please come a little bit closer. It's not like in the school. You don't have to be afraid. On behalf of UNFCCC and of SOFF, I'm very happy to welcome you. My name is Willem van der Voorde. I'm the Belgian Climate Ambassador, and this year also the co-chair of the steering committee of SOFF. So that's why I'm now closely involved with the life in SOFF. We are very happy for you to join us here in this important event. We shall try to focus on collective action, implementation, and the scaling up of what works. And you will see what SOFF has undertaken up till now works. But it needs more means, it needs leverage, and even more partners. And that is the aim of our meeting here. I will immediately give the floor to Noura, who is representing here as host the UNFCCC in this house. So Noura Hamladji is the Deputy Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC. Please, you have the floor. Noura.
Thank you, Willem. Colleagues, really a pleasure to welcome you in the UNFCCC Pavilion. Each year we call it the Pavilion of our partners, so we are really happy to have you all here. We're here to talk about today something quite fundamental, but that often goes overlooked. Every forecast that saves a life, every early warning that protects a harvest, every climate plan that guides a community towards safety, each begin with something almost invisible, the surface weather and climate observations. And these are the quiet backbone of our global climate action. Yet, in far too many places, those systems are broken. The countries that carry the least historical responsibility for climate change are often the most exposed to its risks. And they face those risks without even the basic data to predict and to do early warning. In least developed countries and small island developing states, nearly 9 out of 10 essential global basic observing networks are still not reporting. Africa has over 1 billion people, as we know, and yet Germany has more stations than in the whole continent. When a cyclone forms or a drought tightens its grip, missing data miss warnings, and it also means that preventable losses were not done. Because weather knows no border, this gap weakens global forecast. This is why Systematic Observation Financing Facility, so the acronym is SOFF, was created by WMO, UNDP, and UNEP. SOFF is showing what is possible when countries, UN agencies, development partners, and also philanthropies work together. The results speak for themselves. Countries are installing and repairing stations, countries are sharing data, and strengthening their early warning systems. Today, we launched the SOFF Action Report 2025, showing real progress, clear results, and also a growing momentum in this area that is so important for climate action. Global basic observing networks provide essential infrastructure for resilience, improving preparedness for extreme heat, floods, and wildfire. The World Bank estimates that closing the data gap could unlock billions in economic gains each year, with much larger benefits across agriculture, energy, and water systems. COP30, as we know, must be a moment of implementation, but more importantly, should be a moment of implementation at scale. Here in Belém, in the heart of the Amazon, systematic observation becomes more than technical requirements. They become instruments of collective climate resilience. translating data into protection for people and for nature. It is exactly the kind of partnership we need to move faster. This partnership of SOFF is really what will help us accelerate the implementation that we are talking about here at COP. At UN Climate Change, we are committed to connecting this work with national climate plans, adaptation targets, and transparency systems. SOFF is a tangible UN delivery mechanism that operationalizes the Paris Agreement, Paris Mandate, especially for LDCs and SIDS, helping them generate the essential data that power early warnings, adaptation, and safer and better prepared communities. Closing the weather and climate data gap is a shared responsibility. And with the leadership represented here today, I see from WMO, UNDP, and UNEP at the highest level here today with us, I can be confident that we have the tools to finish the job together. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Noura. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have now the pleasure and the honor to invite to the floor Celeste Saulo, who is the Secretary General of the WMO, for a keynote speech. Please, Celeste, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Willem. Excellencies, colleagues, and dear friends, it's a pleasure and also responsibility to be here with you today. Let me begin with a simple question, a very simple one. How can we act on what we do not observe? Or how we can adapt to something that we cannot measure or understand? Systematic observations lie at the very heart of the Paris Agreement promise. They are what allow us to understand, anticipate, and act on a changing climate. Without them, we are blind and deaf. And the world is changing fast. According to the State of the Climate Update I presented at the opening of the Belém Climate Summit, the year 2025 is one of the 3 hottest years on record. Heat waves, floods, droughts, and storms are now striking with unprecedented intensity and frequency. Tropical cyclones have caused massive devastation. In the past 2 weeks only, we had Melissa in Jamaica, and we had Philippines and Vietnam also affected by different typhoons. I send my deepest condolences to the victims, but I also stand before you today and to say that without advanced forecasts, early warnings, and early action, the loss of life would have been much higher. And forecasts and early warnings depend on the exchange of data from stations on the ground, balloons in the sky, and buoys in the ocean that feed the global observing system. As has been said before, every forecast, every early warning system, every climate projection, every measure of progress, all of it depends on the systematic collection of weather and climate data. Ladies and gentlemen, WMO this year celebrates 75 years as a specialized UN agency. Throughout that time, free data exchange has been our guiding principle. In fact, we are a showcase for data diplomacy, trust, and collaboration. We can be proud of our progress, for all the lives we have saved, the communities we have protected, and the economies we have supported. But as we all know, gaps remain. We need to go farther, faster, and together in closing the gaps. It is a moral obligation and also an economic imperative. This is why the mission of the Systematic Observations Financing Facility, SOFF, is so important to global well-being. SOFF was created as the UN system joint response to close this gap. It enables countries, especially the most vulnerable, to generate and share the data that the world depends on. And let me emphasize this. SOFF was not invented in a bedroom. It was created at the request of 193 members of the World Meteorological Congress by WMO, UNDP, and UNEP as a UN Fund for Collective Action. Today, I'm honored to acknowledge my dear colleagues and partners from these organizations whose leadership and commitment continue to make SOFF a living example of what multilateralism can achieve when it works as one. But colleagues, let's be honest. Climate finance must not only increase, it must also deliver real, measurable impact. For this, we need coordination and collaboration. SOFF shows how this can be done. We are at the cup of truth, and this is how we rebuild trust through measurable progress. And so, as we gather here in Belém, in the spirit of this place, rich in history, culture, and in the voice of Amazon, let us make a promise. Let us go forward. Be united around science, committed to equity, and determined to translate every promise into measurable progress and effective action. Let me end by appreciating the generosity of the SOFF 12 founding founders. Our journey has only begun. To close the data gap once and for all, we need more partners, more ambition, and more courage. I invite all of you, governments, institutions, and philanthropists, to join us. Let's make this the decade when no country is left unobserved. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to scale up. I thank you very much. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very, very much, Celeste, for your very rich remarks. I have to remark, Celeste is not just Secretary General of the WMO, but she's also the co-chair, together with me, of the steering committee. So thank you very much, Celeste. Thank you. Now we shall turn to a small segment related to science, and I will call two speakers to the floor. And I begin with Inger Andersen, who is the Director General of UNEP, and she will give her remarks, and then I will ask for Florence Rabier of the European Weather Middle Term Network. So, but please, first for you, Inger.
Thank you very much, and to Celeste, to where did he go? To UNDP, right in front of me. All right, and to all partners here, thank you for the time, effort, and money that you have invested into this very critical facility. I'll get to the science, but 1 minute. 2 years ago, Cyclone Freddy came across the Indian Ocean and slammed into Malawi with a force that had not been seen for a country that is amongst the poorest on the continent, without early warning. We knew that it was coming, but not the veracity or its fierceness. And I visited Malawi shortly thereafter. And I went to a village where essentially the village has been obliterated. There were mountains which had been denuded because people didn't have fuel, so they had cut the trees because you have to cook. And there were huge boulders as big as a truck that came rolling down and flattened the school, flattened the hospital, flattened the buildings, and buried people over 20 meters, under 20 meters of soil. That is the reality of lacking early warning. And that is what we are talking about here today. And so when we are passionate about this, as you heard from Celeste, it's because of the reality. And the resources that are needed are doable. This is, yes, we need resources for adaptation and mitigation, but this, folks, we can fix this. Just a few days back, we saw Hurricane Melissa slam into the Caribbean. First, we saw Jamaica, then Cuba, then Haiti. And the reality is that because they had early warning, we did not have the kind of devastation in loss of human life. We had devastation, be for sure, but the loss of human life that we might have had we not known. And so looking at this, therefore, and understanding right now that we are, based on the commitments that countries have made right now in terms of their policies, the current policies, we are heading to a 2.8 degree world. If we implement the new 60-odd NDCs plus what will come, then we will probably, and if we take both the conditional and the unconditional, we will head for a 2.3 to 2.656 degree world. If we then take out one country that has stepped out, that adds a digit back on. The reality is that where we are heading is not where we need to be. The emissions gap report looks at what it is we need to do if we want to keep the overshoot at just 0.3 degrees. And looking essentially at the 85% of the emitters, that is of course our G20 plus another 15 countries, we need to cut by 2030 about 28% of our carbon emissions, by 2035 well over 40% of the carbon emission. That's what we need to do. And yes, we are projecting an overshoot, but let's not that be the giving up to the country. This is where we lean in, because we cannot afford to have this happen, and the poorest will pay the price, like those people in Malawi. So the science speaks. It speaks. And we understand also that renewable energy has just dropped in price in a phenomenally good way. So right now, a kilowatt hour of solar, industrial scale, utility scale solar, just under 4 cents. Fossil fuel, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the future. Don't lean back, lean forward. And so when we know that we see that Texas has 40% installed electricity from renewable, it's the market speaking, not the politics speaking. That matters, and that is important. So the SOFF is a place where agencies, partners, philanthropies, and the need is met, led by our friends at the World Meteorological Organizations. They are the people who understand this. But we from UNEP are proud to have a portfolio of around $120 million in this, because our friends at GCF are also funding this, and many of you are funding the GCF. This is very critical, and so we salute this work of the SOFF. We're very grateful to all the partners who are leaning in. We get that this is critical infrastructure. It's entirely doable, and while this infrastructure itself will not solve the climate crisis, it'll keep people out of harm's way, and it will help us project into the future what are the actions that we need to take. So thank you very much for your partnership. Thank you for being the co-chair together with Celeste, and thank you to all for the very important work that you are lending to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Inge, for your very powerful message. And now it's my pleasure to call Florence Rabier to the floor. She's the Director General of the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts.
Thank you very much.
Right. So please, Florence, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I think the previous speakers have very eloquently made the case for early warnings, and that in the case of severe weather, that's really what we want, and for this we need observations. So at ECMWF for now 50 years, our role has been to provide these weather forecasts over the globe in the range of a few days to a few weeks, because this is a typical, a critical time range if you want to do early warnings. And we have tried to improve this forecast continually. We've done that through science, technology, partnership, exchanges with the community. But our forecast, the forecast can only be as good as the observations that feed into them. Observations are indeed the energy source that really feed all these forecasts. They are the fuel behind all forecasts, which then leads to warnings. And we already say that weather knows no border, and this is even true for when we try to predict the weather over the whole globe for a couple of weeks. We all depend on the observations all over the world. So the really weak part is where the observations are not there, where these data gaps that SOFF intends to fill are not there. So at ECMWF, we have some tools to sort of quantify the impact of different observations. We already shown earlier, a few years ago, from the existing observations, that one observation in the middle of the Pacific is about 20 times more powerful in decreasing forecast error than an observation in the middle of Europe or in the US, where we already have quite a lot of observations. It was a bit more tricky to sort of evaluate what would be the impact of future observations, but we developed some scientific techniques to actually quantify this. We tested various scenarios, and in particular, we've shown that even if we just fill in the gap of the least developed state and the small island developing countries, we can already have improvements over Africa of up to 20%, 30%, up to 20% in the Pacific, and around 10% in the Indian Ocean. That's really a lot. That's because these observations are crucially needed. But of course, if we put more observations from all the developing countries, we would get even more impact in other parts of the world. So this really shows the case that if we do things strategically together, we can not only improve the local forecast, but then we show it propagate, and so it multiplies the value of these observations for all of us around the world. So these findings clearly demonstrate why investment in SOFF, in the Systematic Observations Financing Facility, is really important. And at ECMWF, I would like to reaffirm our commitment to continued strong partnership with SOFF, because this is what we need to deliver on the Paris Agreement on systematic observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Florence, for your very warm words. This concludes our considerations of scientific nature. And now we go to the countries in action. And for that, I will first call to the floor Mr. Marcos Neto. He's the director of the Bureau of Policy and Program Support of the UNDP for some introductory remarks. Please, Marcos, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. It's great to be here. My part of this conversation is following Inga and Florence. How do we bring science to action? So that's where we, as UNDP, are very, very proud to have joined WMO and UNEP as co-founder of SOFF and active in its implementation. And thanks Celeste and Inga for the partnership. Now, we are also an implementing entity. And that is where we are bringing that science, bringing that need for early warning into the reality. We are already supporting 6 countries, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Solomon Islands, Tanzania, Madagascar, Malawi, to close the data gap that Noura spoke about. In Tanzania, UNDP is working to support the procurement and installation of 9 new GBON, I have no idea what that is, but I'm assuming it's really sophisticated stuff, GBON compliant automatic weather stations and 4 upper air stations. Similarly, in Ethiopia, 30 new automated weather stations are being installed. Now, they sound fancy machines. They probably are fancy machines, but more important than that, they are actually generating impact. The first additional data are already starting to flow from Rwanda towards the global numerical models, thereby improving the accuracy of forecasts for everyone. The data being generated in these countries are not abstract. They are powerful enablers of development and resilience, providing an evidence base for government decision-making on food security, disaster preparedness, and long-term planning. This data becomes even more important because many of these locations have insufficient data effective to start with, as it was mentioned before. Through SOFF, national meteorological surveys are being strengthened, local expertise is growing, and data is being shared openly for the benefits of all. Now, I agree with Inga. This is about going to scale. And I am very happy that we as UNDP are putting all of our support behind the new Systematic Observation Impact Bond, right? We live in a world where ODA is shrinking, so we've got to try new alternative ways to bring the necessary resources to take this. As Inga said, we can fix it, but it costs money to fix at scale. So let's get an impact bond out. We applaud everyone involved in advancing the groundbreaking conceptual design of the Systematic Observation Impact Bond. If successful, it can truly serve the way for other bonds in similar contexts, as well as to scale up SOFF. At UNDP, we are leveraging our expertise on bond issues to advance this bond, which is critical for mobilizing finance for SOFF. We are also exploring the lessons that we can take into other contexts. Our call to action is clear. We urge all partners to join us and replenish SOFF to meet the expectations of over 60 countries already in the pipeline, and for governments here, buy the bond when we issue as well. Look, I'm really excited about this. We're fully committed, and especially because it matters to LDCs and seats, and it's the right tool. Now, I'm supposed, or you're supposed to call a video, right? You're going to call a video, or am I going to call the video of the Prime Minister?
I will call the video.
You call the video.
Yeah, yeah.
So, William, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mark Aston. You can stay here on the stage if you want. And now I invite the audience to watch the pre-recorded message of His Excellency Dasho, chairing Top Guy, who is the Prime Minister of Bhutan. So he will appear on the screen.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we meet today at a moment of great urgency. The world stands at a crossroads as the climate crisis grows more severe. For us, climate change is not a debate. It is an existential challenge to our people, our culture, and our way of life. Yet, gatherings like the COP remind us that we are not alone. Bhutan joins the global community with conviction, guided by a belief that harmony between people and nature is essential for our survival. But even with strong commitment, our ability to act is limited by one fundamental challenge: the lack of reliable climate and weather data. You cannot manage what you do not measure. Without accurate data, it is difficult to understand how our climate is changing or plan effectively for the future. This is why the Systematic Observations Financing Facility has been transformative for Bhutan. Through SOFF, we are installing new weather stations, upgrading our observation systems, and training our experts. For the first time, Bhutan is deploying advanced upper air observation systems, allowing us to contribute valuable data to the global network. This partnership strengthens not only Bhutan's forecasting and early warning systems, but also the world's understanding of mountain climates. When Bhutan collects data from its high peaks, it benefits not just Thimphu, but also Dhaka and Delhi and Kathmandu. It shows how investment in one small nation can have far-reaching global impacts. Therefore, SOFF is more than just a national project. It is a global investment in shared security and prosperity. While we take pride in these achievements, we also know that much more remains to be done. Bhutan's terrain, small population, and limited resources make adaptation a constant challenge. The technology we need often remains out of our reach. We must keep building capacity and expanding cooperation. The success of SOFF in Bhutan shows what can be achieved when global cooperation meets local action. Together, we can turn this crisis into an opportunity to restore balance, renew hope, and protect our home for all life that depends on it. Thank you, and Tashidile.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. So that was a very, I think, concrete illustration of a success story of SOFF on the ground. Now I'm inviting to the floor here His Excellency Louisa Mek, who is the President of the National Institute for Disaster Risk Management and Reduction of Mozambique, to join the stage and give the message. Where is our speaker? Please, His Excellency, you have the floor.
Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, first of all, to express on behalf of the government of the Republic of Mozambique and in my own name, my satisfaction in taking the floor at this high-level panel on SOFF, dedicated to sharing experience and mobilizing more funds to close the existing gap in meteorological and climate data for evidence-based decision-making. Mozambique, due to its geographical location, is cyclically vulnerable to extreme weather and climate events. Negatively and significantly impact several key sectors of the country's economic and development. Given Mozambique's commitment to implementing the LUN of For All initiative, the government launched its national roadmap on the LUN For All approved at a meeting at the highest level of government as a way of demonstrating its commitment to implementing this initiative. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the World Meteorological Organization, in partners with the UNEP and UNDP, created the Systematic Observation Funding Mechanism, SOFF, of which we are proud to be a part of be amongst the first countries to benefit for this initiative. SOFF will contribute to, in some way, to the implementation of some of the activities included in the offered national roadmap. With this initiative, the country is modernizing its national network of meteorological observation, installing 6 new automatically served stations and the rehabilitation 15 of the existing ones. Finally, integrate into the global data network of the L system, ensuring that Mozambique's observations can contribute to more accurate global focus, strengthen the technical and institutional capacity of these professionals, and fostering regional partnership with neighboring SADC countries in order to ensure integrated and sustainable coverage of climate data. In addition, to ensure the full integration of data into the global network, another important milestone of this initiative will be the reactivation of high-altitude meteorological observation through the installation of 4 new stations. It is important to note that Mozambique last conducted high-altitude meteorological observation in 1990s. This effort reflects our commitment to transform Mozambique into a regional example in the generation, share and use of climate data with directly impacts on community resilience, food security, and disaster management. Ladies and gentlemen, Mozambique's experience shows that investing in data is investing in lives and the future of the community. Therefore, we have appealed to international partners and the private sector to strengthen the practical and long-term funding for initiative for SOFF and the other complementary initiative. There are still a large number of countries that need financial support through SOFF. It is essential to ensure that all developing countries have the necessary means to observe, understand, and act on climate. Mozambique reaffirms its commitment to the full implementation of SOFF and the transparent sharing of data with the international community. The integration of meteorological data into national adaptation and the development policy, and the promotion of African solidarity supports neighboring countries to strengthen their own observation system. In a world where climate change no border scientific and technical cooperation is our first line of defense. Mozambique is ready to continue to lead by example, transforming data into decision and the decision into resilience. In conclusion, SOFF represented an essential milestone in strength the meteorological observation base worldwide, specifically in the most vulnerable countries. Investing in data is investing in resilience. A more accurate, focused, and a more effective climate policy. May we together ensure that no country is left behind in building a true, inclusive, and sustainable global climate observation system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for your witness. Very interesting to hear that from Mozambique. Now, this concludes a little part on action on the ground, and now we will turn to the Action Report Lounge of 2025 by the Director of SOFF, Marcus Repnik. Marcus, you have the floor for a presentation.
No, thank you very much, William, colleagues, friends. It's a real honor for me to actually present to you. We're launching today the 2025 SOFF Action Report. Actions undertaken by countries, actions supported by advanced Met services or peer advisors, actions supported by implementing entities, and actions enabled by the gracious funding of 12 pioneer funders. So I have 3 messages from this report. First, we are moving fast. We're proud of this. Countries are moving fast. Second, we are starting to close the data gap. And third, we need to do more. So we're moving fast. Where do we stand? We opened our doors for business 3.5 years ago. Today, more than 100 countries have requested support. If there's one message, countries, developing countries, are committed to deliver their share to the global observing network so that no country remains unobserved. Out of these 100 plus countries, currently we are supporting 61 countries initial support. 43 of them have already concluded the readiness work. 18 countries are receiving investment support. So in terms of actions, we're moving fast. Now, next slide, please. What does this mean in terms of closing the data gap? Going back, Florence, to your intervention. The 18 countries that are currently supported, with this support, we're addressing 29% of the GBON Global Basic Observing Network data gap. But our target is, by 27, to have actually in total 50 countries. And with these 50 countries, we will close already 60% of the data gap. And Florence, you're emphasizing how important it is to close the data gap in LDCs and SIDS. But in order to do this, we need more resources. We need 200 million additional resources by end of next year, which brings us to the last point. We need additional resources from existing funders. Sincere thanks to all existing funders, but we also need to innovate. We innovate our financing, namely to the Systematic Observation Impact Bond. We want to bring together investors and public and private donors on 3 objectives. Front-loading money. We need the money now. We cannot wait. The costs of inaction are too high. Second, creating a broad coalition of public and private funders and investors to multi-row on systematic observation. And third, impact. On behalf of the countries, we commit to increase the amount of data generated and shared by 500%, independently verified by WMO. I want to close actually with what you mentioned, Celeste. We are just here talking, but it's the countries doing the work. And I'm pleased that we have, I think, a few directors of Met offices in the audience. Raise your hand. I see here 1, I see here 2 Met directors. I see 3 there contributing. So it is your work, the work of your teams in sometimes challenging environments that makes this happen, that helps us all closing the data gaps in your countries. And with this, I'm clear the Action Report 2025 as launched, and thank you very much. Back to you, Willem.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Marcus. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Now, you made a clear appeal to the countries that support SOFF. We have seen here already some representatives present, and now we shall give some attention to some statements of support. And we will start with the Spanish Prime Minister, who was here at the summit last week in Belém, and mentioned also SOFF in his speech before the assembly here last week at the summit. We shall now see Prime Minister Sánchez.
Hemos superado nuestro objetivo de financiación climática internacional antes de lo prometido y vamos a comprometernos en seguir ese objetivo. Hoy he podido además anunciar nuevas contribuciones por un valor en conjunto de 45 millones de euros distribuidos entre el Fondo de Adaptación, el Fondo de Respuesta ante Pérdidas y Daños, el Mecanismo Financiero para Observaciones Sistemáticas de la Organización Meteorológica Mundial. En definitiva, vamos a continuar con ese compromiso y esa hoja de ruta de financiación climática.
So that was, I think, a nice message, and actually I can be more precise. So the specific contribution for 25 of Spain will be 5 million euros. So it is ready for disbursement. So we are very grateful for that contribution. Now we have a next video message from my boss, the foreign minister from Belgium.
Ladies and gentlemen, protecting lives and livelihoods is a fair and noble goal. That's exactly what SOFF, the Systematic Observations Financing Facility, is doing. And they are doing it in a fast and effective way, with a focus on making a real impact. SOFF helps developing countries, especially least developed countries and small island developing states, by giving technical advice, training, and investing in better weather systems. Bridging the gap in weather data is key to protecting all of us. With better weather predictions, reliable climate data, and early warning systems, communities can better prepare for disasters. This helps them become more resilient to extreme weather events and climate change. SOFF is a great example of how climate science and international cooperation come together to support the global good. But as you know, these important issues are under pressure, even under attack. That's why I'm asking you to join Belgium supporting SOFF. I'm convinced of the transformative power SOFF can bring, especially during this climate crisis. So please, join us. Join SOFF and see the difference it can make for climate adaptation and climate science. Thank you, all of you.
Yeah, thank you. It's very nice to have a boss who supports your aims, no? And that was a message by Maxime Prévost. He's our Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs, but also for Development Cooperation. And I can announce that since that recording, which was a short while ago, the government and he himself decided to add 8.3 million more in funding for SOFF in the next 3 years. So that is the latest state of affairs. Thank you. Now I will call to the floor His Excellency Neil Richmond, who is the Minister of State for International Development and Diaspora of Ireland, to join us and to give his message of support. Excellency, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Willem. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute honour to be here. And some of you have been to Ireland, some of you are just familiar with Ireland. Any of you who have met anyone who's Irish knows we are obsessed with the weather. I've had 19 conversations today alone. What's the temperature like in Belém? Is it sunny? Is it balmy? And yes, it is lashing rain to the extent that it can be very hard to be heard over it. So what we're talking about today is more than particularly of interest to Irish people. And dear Marcus, I'd firstly like to congratulate you on the launch of this annual action report, because for us it really highlights the successes, but it also reminds of the scale of the information gap, and that innovation is essential to close the early warning systems data gap. The stories we have just heard clearly highlight the value of early warning systems, and additionally, the report underlines that the effectiveness of early warning system is dependent on the quality of information feeding them and the capacity to analyse and use the data provided. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where SOFF adds real value. Ireland is particularly supportive of the peer-to-peer element of SOFF's work. This includes south-to-south peer-to-peer learning, as highlighted by my friend from Mozambique here this evening. Increased capacity is not just systems and technology, but also in people. It's essential for achieving meaningful and lasting impact. It will not surprise many gathered here to hear that the focus of SOFF on least developed countries and small island developing states is core to Ireland's interest in the programme. One of the most striking things in the report for me is the speed at which SOFF operates. The fact that in just over 2 years, over 100 countries, primarily least development countries and small island development states, have requested SOFF support and 60 countries are already receiving support, is testament to the critical need for SOFF interventions and SOFF's capacity to deliver. And as Celeste, you already remarked, we remember so many people, particularly in Jamaica, Cuba and Haiti, who were victims of Hurricane Melissa. And of course, many people who had attended the workshop run by SOFF in Kingston not that long ago. These are the people who are at the forefront of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the flow of SOFF resources into strengthening early warning systems has reduced forecast uncertainty by up to 30% in Africa and 20% in the small island developing states. These are not just percentages, these are communities protected, crops saved, and cultures preserved. However, more must be done as climate records continue to be broken on an almost monthly basis and extreme weather events are multiplying in frequency and severity. As I mentioned, the report Marcus launched highlights the need for innovation. I must therefore commend SOFF on this front. In a challenging time for funding, where thankfully Ireland remains an outlier with an increased official development assistance budget for 2026, organisations must be innovative to deliver for the most vulnerable, and SOFF is clearly leading from the front in that regard. Ireland is fully supportive of the SOFF Impact Bond. Closing the early warnings data gap requires capital beyond what can be generated from traditional sources. This impact bond is a step towards scaling up finances to attain early warning for all targets. The report further underlines the urgency of the climate crisis and highlights that one of our greatest assets in fighting the climate crisis is data. Accurate, timely and comprehensive data is essential for the functioning of early warning systems. As the alarm bells ring louder, we must accelerate action to close the data gap. When data is missing, warnings are delayed, and unfortunately we all know what happens when warnings are delayed. Lives, quite simply, are lost and economies are destroyed. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that everyone from farmers in rural Malawi to fisherpersons in Vanuatu have access to reliable, comprehensive and timely information. I'll be blunt, the fact that Germany alone has more weather reporting stations than the entire African continent must be addressed with extreme urgency. Ireland is pleased to have been one of the first contributors to SOFF. Our contributions total of €10 million to date, and it was a privilege for my team in Irish Aid to chair the SOFF steering committee with Professor Salo until earlier this year. Our role in the engine room of SOFF further highlighted that SOFF is effectively responding to demand from climate vulnerable countries. And to further underpin our commitment, I'm delighted to announce a new and additional pledge of €8 million to support SOFF and the countries it supports to achieve their goal. Although after hearing from my dear friend Maxime, we might have to see if we can find a few extra quid down the couch to make it 8.4. But that's someone else's commitment to make, not mine. This contribution, ladies and gentlemen, from a small island state in the North Atlantic Ocean reflects our unwavering commitment to the most climate vulnerable nations, and in particular small island developing states and least developed countries. This funding will support the sustained collection and dissemination of weather data, contributing to Ireland's commitment to the UN Secretary-General's Early Warnings for All initiative. It will help the most climate vulnerable communities to prepare, adapt and ultimately save lives, livelihoods, cultures and biodiversity. And that's why we join with our friends in Spain and Belgium on calling on others present this evening and here at COP to invest in SOFF, invest in data, invest in the resilience of least developing countries and small island development states. It's been a pleasure to join you here this evening. Thank you all so much and enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Thank you very much, Minister. And as you said, indeed, so I took over the co-chairmanship of Ireland, who was very much engaged, not just financially, but also in working hours and staff, which was allowed to work for SOFF. So really immense thanks from all of us for what you did. Now I call to the floor Her Excellency Afke van Rijn. She's the Vice Minister for the Environment and International Affairs of the Netherlands, and I'm eager to hear your message. Afke, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Willem. And for me also, it's an honor to be here and see so many of you. So, 2 years ago, during the UN Water Conference in New York, the Netherlands announced a contribution to SOFF. The Netherlands' contribution to SOFF is part of a larger project in East Africa called Water at the Heart of Climate Action. And this afternoon, we have heard many illustrations of the importance of better observations. And this project, Water at the Heart of Climate Action, already demonstrates how better observations can lead to better warnings for vulnerable groups hit by extreme weather and ultimately save lives and livelihoods through early response. And that is why SOFF is an integral part of this project. Water at the Heart is also demonstrating the importance of working together with partners like IFRC, WMO, UNDRR, and SOFF, delivering as a team. And let me highlight the importance of peer-to-peer support as the core of the system. We are linking observations and measurements internationally. And that's how we build a knowledge multiplier that eventually will save lives. The Dutch National Weather Service, KNMI, is providing this peer support already to 5 SOFF countries, to Sao Tome, to Cabo Verde, to Senegal, Uganda, and to Suriname. And I'd like to highlight Suriname for a reason. It's a country literally around the corner, a carbon negative country. Suriname is not contributing to, but already facing the effects of climate change and extreme weather. And it is of the utmost importance to work together with Suriname for better observations, early warnings, and climate research. There are no quick fixes. In order to be successful, it's important to have long-term twinning relations. And I would call on the other countries here to become active in the SOFF process too. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud that the Netherlands has already been contributing a substantial amount for the SOFF Trust Fund, and we are always looking for opportunities to continue this support. I'm very impressed by the speed, quality, and impact of the SOFF process. Our community has to keep up with this pace because there's no time to lose. Climate change and extreme weather will not wait for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afke. Thanks very much for this engagement. And now I have the honor and the pleasure to call again to the floor Florence Rabier, Director General of the ECMWF, but this time on behalf of the European Meteorological Organizations. So please, Florence.
Exactly. So this time I will talk about the European Meteorological Community. And for it, SOFF is really of strategic importance. We talked about the blind spots in terms of observation that feed into the forecast and then do forecast and warning. What we haven't talked about is that these blind spots also limit the validation of satellite data, and including from Europe's EUMETSAT and also Copernicus missions. So that's another angle, actually. It contributes to the calibration, validation, and us better using the satellite data, which are also extremely important for the forecasts. So we think that then closing these gaps not only contributes to early warning for all initiative directly, but also it maximizes the value of European and international investments in weather and climate infrastructure modeling and services. This is why we came together as a community to clearly express our commitment to SOFF for investment there. We came together with the space agency EUMETSAT and the network of European meteorological services, EUMETNet, to release a strong support statement. And I will read it not to really, because it was a well-crafted statement. So we joined WMO in calling for the following actions. We call on governments and developing partners to consider investments in SOFF to close the global weather and climate data gap. We also urge EU member states to support the European Commission's proposal for its future competitiveness fund to include contributions to international in-situ surface-based network as an integral part of the Copernicus program for the next EU budget 2028-2034 and invest in surface-based observations outside Europe through SOFF. Through the Systematic Observation Impact Bond, we invite sovereign donors, philanthropies, and private sector to join the coalition of partners that creates a new innovative climate finance mechanism to fast-track action and increase shared weather and climate data. Yeah, that's all.
That's a very powerful message.
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much. No, and knowing that the leading European agencies are behind that, I think that's really worth noticing. So now we're coming to the last part of our event here, and that is about scaling up with innovative finance. And you heard already some hints about the impact bond. And now I will call to the floor Ms. Satu Santala, who's the Managing Director of the Nordic Development Fund, for some considerations on this issue. So please, Satu, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Willem. And what a great evening. You can just sense the joint commitment and the excitement for the work that SOFF has already been doing and how much more it can do. And that's really very unique. And I really commend all the pledges that have been made here today, and already the commitment that we have from all of us partners from before. We, the Nordic Development Fund, are of course a proud member of the SOFF family. We have contributed altogether 16 million already to the fund, and have also really enjoyed being on the ride from the very beginning and kind of seeing the coalition build. And as a Nordic institution, collaboration is really in our DNA. And kind of seeing how trust, transparency, and that real commitment to doing practical work on the ground and seeing how things are changing, that really speaks to us. And that's always been kind of the attraction of SOFF for us. But I would say that SOFF is almost a victim of its success, because we see how countries are really running with it. We see all these meteorological institutions really kind of getting their act together, working on this. And that means we need financing fast, because this commitment, we can't let the momentum vanish. We just really have to keep pushing forward. And therefore, I think we really need to match this commitment with the kind of sustainable financing that is required. The Nordic Development Fund is a climate and development fund that really specializes on catalytic financing for innovative ideas. And that's why we were, of course, very attracted by the idea of the SOFF Impact Bond. And in fact, we provided one of our small grants. We call them booster grants. I think here the booster really kind of makes sense to help put this together. It may sound like an easy thing to do. I can assure you it is very, very hard work. And of course, kudos to Marcus and the whole team, everyone who's working on this, and all the partners that are already kind of coming to the table to talk about this. And it's pretty amazing that we can actually make this happen, and I'm really excited to see how it will materialize. So even if all of us have already been speaking about the bond today, it will be announced officially tomorrow at the COP30 presidency co-hosted event. Oh no, not tomorrow, on the 14th. Sorry. 14th. False news. So I really hope that everyone will come and attend that event. But now we're going to get a preview of what is to come, and we will have a film on the SOFF Impact Bond.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Satu. Thank you.
A gap can be frustrating, limiting, dangerous. Now, let me tell you about a gap that stretches across the entire planet. Did you know that every country must share its weather data in one global network? Why? Because we all rely on it for every forecast, early warning, and climate action. But in countries with the most limited resources, 90% of that data is missing. And this gap ripples across forecasts and lives everywhere. For farmers, less knowledge of when to plant to feed us all. For pilots, less guidance to fly us home safely. For communities, less time to prepare before a devastating cyclone, when every hour counts for survival. As weather gets more extreme and unpredictable, the gap that once felt frustrating or limiting is now becoming dangerous for everyone. We need to close it. That is why a United Nations fund has invented this, the Systematic Observation Impact Bond. It is a new way to support countries, to act faster than ever, and close the weather and climate data gap together. It's time to scale up action.
Very good. So we'll hear everything about it on the 14th. So it's on Friday afternoon. So, and I think we can call a last person to the stage, and that is Ms. Surabi Menon. It's the Vice President of Climate Works Foundation. Please, Surabi, have the floor.
Thank you. And I'm the last speaker, so I'm going to be really quick. This last clip was really interesting to see. As a climate scientist, most of my professional career in the last 10 years has been around climate modeling, used a lot of ECMWF forecasts, did a lot of future predictions, and for that, data is so important. But what is troubling to see is how quickly the climate impacts are getting worse and worse. What we saw with Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica shows that even with the seawall and natural protection like the mangroves, we still were not able to see the damages. They still overcame all of the resilient design that was built in there. And with impacts getting worse, we're going to see more of that. And that's why getting data, observations, satellite data, the right modeling forecast, all of that is really important in order to build the early warning systems that we all need across the globe. So it needs to be coverage everywhere. So that is the reason why we see this as a very important topic. And we heard collective financing is really important. And Climate Works Foundation, we were one of the first movers in the Anchor Fund, putting in close to $1.2 million into these SOFF impact bond, but it is conditional finance. It only unlocks if there is more funding that comes in. So we are hoping to see many of you step up and provide the additional funding. I think you put 200 million that is needed, and we need it fast. And that's why we did not wait, and we came in very early with the funding that is needed. So we also see philanthropy is stepping up quite a bit in this space. We just released a report, Jess Hitt was there releasing it today, which shows that philanthropy is scaling and is putting in close to 870 million as of last year towards adaptation finance. And in order to make it productive investments, we do need early warning predictions and better data to help all of that. So the call is very clear. We need governments, we need philanthropies, we need the scientists, business, all of us to come together to accelerate and scale the data that is needed so that the universal early warning system becomes a reality for us all. So I'll stop there and thank you.
Thank you very much, Surabi. Thank you very, very much. And really, it's fantastic. This is really one of the pioneering supporters of the Impact Bond. It's this kind of people we need, and I'm sure we will find by the end of the week and in the next weeks. So thanks again for your really courageous and foresighting decision. So now we come to the end of this event, and we have talked a lot. I will not repeat anymore many of the points which have been prepared. Just maybe 2-3 last words. First, a word of thanks to the SOFF team, to Marcus Repnik and his team for preparing all these events, for really an energy which is unmatchable, for everything which is done. So I think, Celeste, I can speak for the whole steering committee to express our appreciation for all what you do for the common good of all of us. Then I'm also very grateful for the Brazilian presidency, who has given us also the space later this week to give attention to the SOFF Impact Bond project as one of the, I will not say deliverables, but points of action which merit attention in the course of this COP30 here. And then finally, we can all go home. I remember very well the words of the Prime Minister of Bhutan, who said, so you cannot manage things which you cannot measure. So for that, we need you, supporters. I think this is a wonderful project. I thank you very much for your presence. Wish you a nice evening, and I hope you will continue thinking a little bit tonight when you're getting your sleep about this, the possibilities this project offers for all of us, thinking about the weather and so on. Thanks very much. Have a nice evening, and I call just the speakers to the front here for a picture. But thanks very much, all of you. Have a nice evening. Thank you.